لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وفقهنا إذا جهلنا وزدنا علما نافعا وعملا متقبلا يا كريم. اللهم انفعنا بالقرآن العظيم واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة يا كريم. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل وفهمنا معاني التنزيل. وبعد، اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما، صلاة تفتح لنا بها أبواب الرضا والتيسير وتغلق بها أبواب الشر والتعسير. أنت مولانا فنعم المولى ونعم النصير. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما، صلاة تفتح لنا بها أبواب الرضا والتيسير وتغلق بها أبواب الشر والتعسير. أنت مولانا فنعم المولى ونعم النصير. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما، صلاة تفتح لنا بها أبواب الرضا والتيسير وتغلق بها أبواب الشر والتعسير. أنت مولانا فنعم المولى ونعم النصير. بسم الله. So, in our study of Surah Yasin, we've now moved into the second part of Surah Yasin, which is the part that speaks about Tawheed. After the belief in prophets, we moved into belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. والآيات الدالة على وجوده وقدرته ووحدانيته. Speaking about those verses that show that He exists and that He has absolute power and that He is singular in nature. And we looked at the first of those verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He states, وَآيَةٌ لَهُمُ الْأَرْضُ الْمَيْتَةُ أَحْيَيْنَاهَا وَأَخْرَجْنَا مِنْهَا حَبًّا فَمِنْهُ يَأْكُلُونَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the dead earth, where He says we revive it and we bring forth from it grain, فَمِنْهُ يَأْكُلُونَ, from it they eat. And what we read yesterday was that's عبارة واضحة صريحة. It's a clear statement as to the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the Lord, but also it's indicating ihya al-mawta. It's also speaking about resurrection of the dead. And so within that, the dead earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the hab, the grain that grows out of it from which they eat. He subhanahu wa ta'ala then continues by saying, وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا جَنَّاتٍ مِّن نَخِيلٍ وَأَعْنَابٍ. And we placed therein groves of date palms. Jannatin min nakhil, groves of date palms, wa a'nab, and grapevines. And then the verse will continue, wa fajjarna fiha min al-uyun. Out of all of the fruits and out of all of the food that is consumed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after speaking about the grain, He speaks about dates and grapes. So this ayah, this part of the ayah, Al-Imam Ali As-Sabuni rahimahullah ta'ala comments by saying, وَجَعَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ بَسَاتِينَ نَاضِرَةً فِيهَا مِنْ أَنْوَاعِ النَّخِيلِ وَالْعِنَبِ. We made on earth blooming gardens, blooming gardens, in which are all kinds of date palms and grapes. وَفَجَّرْنَا فِيهَا مِنَ الْعُيُونِ. And we caused to burst forth therein springs, meaning we made springs of fresh water and unrestrained rivers across many lands. Ibn Ajib rahimahullah ta'ala, he comments upon this verse by saying, وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا جَنَّاتٍ مِّن نَخِيلٍ. And we placed therein, in the earth, groves, i.e. gardens of date palms and grapevines, من نخيل وأعناب, وفجرنا فيها من العيون, and caused to burst forth therein springs. Now he brings out, we'll look at the grammatical points that he touches upon. Well, here, as the verse will end, أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ, the next verse will end. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking about all that He's provided in order for human beings to understand the gratitude that they're required to show for the food that comes out of the earth, the water that they drink. The end of Surah Al-Mulk, قُلْ أَرَيْتُمْ مَنْ أَصْبَحَ مَاؤُكُمْ غَوْرًا فَمَنْ يَأْتِيكُمْ بِمَاءٍ مَعِينٍ. If all of the water in the earth was to disappear, who would bring you flowing water? And the Prophet would end that by reading Allahu Rabbul Alameen. It's only Allah, the Lord of the worlds, who will be able to bring that. So the grain that grows and all of that, the bread and all the food that we eat from that, and the fruits, the palm, the dates, and the grapes, and the very water, fresh water that we drink, all of that requires us to show thanks to Allah and gratitude. And we also need to show gratitude because all He required of us to show gratitude for these infinite blessings is just to say, Alhamdulillah, alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alna muslimin. That's all that He asked us to, by way of gratitude. Now, the grammatical points that he discusses here. وَفَجَّرْنَا فِيهَا مِنَ الْعُيُونِ. If you look at the Arabic script, and just to be aware that the slides here, we haven't put in the Arabic script, or inshallah in the book that we published, there will obviously be the Arabic script of Surah Yasin within it that you can always refer back to. But the ayah here has the min. وَفَجَّرْنَا فِيهَا مِنَ الْعُيُونِ. So here Ibn Ajib is discussing what's the min. And the reason for that is a fajjara yufajjiru, which in modern Arabic means explode, an explosion. Tafsir is an explosion. Fajjara yufajjiru means to cause something to explode or to burst out, is what's termed in sarf, in morphology, as fi'al muta'addi. It's a fi'al muta'addi, it's a transitive verb. And a transitive verb, fi'al muta'addi, requires maf'ul. It requires a direct object. So here the questioner is pointing out, what's the object in this? What's the tafjir that we cause to burst forth from the springs, min al-uyun? What's being caused to burst forth? So the first suggestion that he gives two suggestions for this. Al-Akhfash, and Al-Akhfash is one of the earliest imams of grammar, one of the earliest Nahawiyin. He said that the min here is what's termed as min za'ida. It's an additional min. And al-huruf al-za'ida tufidu ma'na ta'keed. They emphasize a point. Like Malik and Ahmed, they held a view. وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ, the ayah of wudu, wipe your heads. They said the ba is harf za'id. It's harf ta'keed. It's there, it's an additional particle to emphasize the point. So Al-Akhfash, Ibn Ajib is mentioned, Al-Akhfash, Al-Nahawi, the Imam of Grammar, he said the min here is additional. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is essentially saying, وَفَجَّرْنَا فِيهَا الْعُيُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, it's the spring here just to emphasize the point. That's the view of Al-Akhfash. So on the view of Al-Akhfash, there's an emphasis with the maf'ul. There's an emphasis of the springs that are being caused to gush forth from the earth. وَعِنْدَ غَيْرِهِ, or others, the object is mahdhuf. It's not being mentioned. It's being omitted. The maf'ul bihi mahdhuf, and the jar majroor uqima maqam al-maf'ul. It's taken the place of it. And min al-uyun is taking the place of it. So on the view of others, they said the ayah reads, وَفَجَّرْنَا فيها في الأرض ما تتمتعون به من العيون. And we cause to gush forth all of that which you enjoy. من العيون, by way of the springs. On this second reading, the min here it's not ba'd al-shay. It's not min means from. It doesn't mean from. It then means, it's what's termed in Nahw as min al-bayaniyya. It's to clarify. ما تتمتعون به. Well, let's just go back to the verse. And cause to burst forth. All that you enjoy, what you enjoy, al-uyun. Springs themselves that you enjoy. ما تتمتعون به من العيون. All that you enjoy of those springs that provide that pure water. So the min is either zaida or it's bayaniya. It's either additional to emphasize, it's the uyun, it's the springs that are being caused to gush forth, or it's clarifying the object that's being emitted, which is that which you enjoy. And it's clarifying what you enjoy as being the water from the springs. وَفَجَّرْنَا فِيهَا مِنَ الْعُيُونِ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and verse 35 is ta'leel. It's ta'leel al-ayatayn as-sabiqatayn. It's explaining the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done all what He's done. He's created life out of a dead earth. He's caused grain to grow from it, from which you eat. And then verse 34, verse 35 is explaining 34. It's explaining 34, not the two verses before, just 34. The Jannat, so the orchards of date trees and of grapevines and all of this water that Allah has caused to explode out of the earth for you. لِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ. The reason why He's done all of that, He says, so that they may eat from its fruits, or as we'll see, from His fruits. The thamarihi, and again, the limitations of translation, and that's why I was listening to a lecture yesterday from Shaykh Hamza Yusuf, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. He's doing a series about the Quran and the Blessed Month, and he picked up on an essential point. He said, there is no such thing as a translation of the Quran. It's all interpretation. There is no such thing. And Shaykh Abdullah, Shaykh Nuruddin Attar, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his work on Ulum al-Quran, he makes the point as well. الترجمة الحرفية is مستحيلة. So an actual word for word translation is impossible. He said all translations are ترجمة تفسيرية, the translations of meanings. So in reality, you never actually have a translation of the Quran, you have interpretation of the Quran. And there are certain key words here you have an example. Min thamarihi. What's the dhamir, the he, what's it referring back to? Its fruits. And he's going to get into a discussion, what's the it within that? But also his fruits, min thamarillah, from his fruits, from the fruits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, so that they may eat of its fruits, or his fruits subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what their hands have worked. And even though what their hands have worked, and they eat from the labor of their hands, the farming that they've done. That's the ma. But Ibn Ajib is going to point out a second accepted interpretation of this, that the ma is nafiya, and their hands they've done nothing for this. So the ma could be mawsula, and what they eat of its fruits and what their hands have worked. But also, وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ, their hands haven't done anything for it. It's all بِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. It's all, so what's the ma here? And what their hands have worked, and what their hands have not worked anything. That's a second interpretation. So that they may eat of its fruits and what their hands have worked, or alternatively, so that they may eat of his fruits and what their hands have worked, and in both cases, and their hands have not worked anything. So Shaykh al-Sabuni, rahimahullah ta'ala, he explains, he says that this means الآية الكريمة وجعلنا فيها ينابيع من الماء العذب ليأكلوا من ثمرات ما ذكر من الجنات والنخيل, so that they may eat from the fruits from the gardens and date palms that we mentioned, from its fruits. Here, what Shaykh al-Sabuni has done in the Arabic here, to help the understanding. When you say min thamarihi, when Allah subhanahu said min thamarihi, on the meaning of it must refer back to a masculine noun. Allah subhanahu didn't say thamariha. And that's the more obvious thing to say, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about jannatin min nakhil wa a'nab wa fajjarna fiha min al-uyun. Jannat is feminine. وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب. That's all feminine. That they eat of the fruits from the gardens and date palms that have been mentioned. So he gets around this by explaining ما ذكر من الجنات وما ذكر من الأشجار, i.e. from its fruits, meaning from the fruits of all of that which has been mentioned before. So that's by that he's trying to get around the issue, the pronoun within them, which he subhanahu wa ta'ala originated for them, and from that which they planted and cultivated themselves. And so in the first, it incorporates both. He subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in thamarihi wa ma amilatu, that's from the fruits of the gardens that have been mentioned, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, but also from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or what the human being has worked. Part initially from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's khalq, and also from their amal, from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from the actions of what they do. Ibn Kathir, he then quotes from Ibn Kathir, لما امتن على خلق بإيجاد الزروع لهم, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned his favor of having brought crops into existence for them, and that was in the previous verse, وأخرجنا منها حبا, that he brought forth from it grain. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that favor first. He then mentioned the second favor by describing something of the types of fruits that he subhanahu wa ta'ala provided for them. He followed that by mentioning different types of fruits. And all of that is only possible because of Rahmat ar-Rahman subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because ar-Rahman subhanahu wa ta'ala showered the human beings with their blessings, with the blessings that came from him. لا بسعيهم وكدهم ولا بحولهم وقوتهم. And it was not by their efforts or hard work, nor by their movements or power. Now here, what Ibn Kathir is indicating is the second meaning of ma. The second meaning of ma. وَمَا عَمِلَتْ وَأَيْدِيهِمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so As-Sabuni here is bringing the second meaning, that it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the human being doesn't do anything. And everything that he does, all the effort and all the hard work and all the movement and all the ability, that effort that he puts into it, doesn't produce anything. It's all produced by the mercy and the power and the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ. Which is why then he subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَلَا يَشْكُرُونَ. Will they not then show thanks? Will they not then show thanks for all that he subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with, and which in reality they haven't done anything for by themselves. I'll just mention this, and it's just come to mind, and it's for the students of language amongst us. The afala is very common. Awala, afala, yatafakkarun, afala. But just to look at the grammatical structure of that. You have a hamza, which is istifham, question, the a. And then you have the fa, and sometimes it will come as a wa. Awala ya'lamuna anna Allah ya'lam awala. And then you have the fa or the waw, which is harf ataf, and then you have the la which is nafi. So afala, 3 words. The a is hamzat al-istifham, it's a question. The fa is a harf ataf. The la is nafi. But what must always take place without exception, you never say, because normally you start off with the harf, and you'd say fala, fa-la. But the rule in language is al-istifham lahu sadarat al-kalam. Al-istifham lahu sadarat al-kalam. You must always begin with the harf istifham. You must always begin with that. The only exception to that is the harf jar. Like you say, bikam. The ba starts. Min aina. You start with the min. So you always start with the question, except if there's a harf jar there. And so that's why the hamza comes first and not the fa. You don't say fa ala yashkurun. You say afala yashkurun. The hamza is the question, and that must always begin. And then you have the fa, and then you have the lam, then you have the la after that. That doesn't really serve any meaning, but you just understand the structure of that word. Afala yashkurun. Will they not then show thanks for all that He subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed them with? Imam al-Sabuni, he goes back to this discussion that we touched upon about the ma. وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ. What's the ma then? As we said, there's 2 views here. Ma al-mawsula means what, or ma al-nafiya. He says Ibn Jarir, and Ibn Jarir is a Tabari. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari. Ibn Jarir al-Tabari is one of the earliest mufassirin. Ibn Jarir held the view that the ma here means alladhi. وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَالَّذِي عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ. Which then means so that they may eat of its fruits and of what their hands prepare, and what they cultivate and what they plant. And so, and he mentioned that. He mentioned that as the view of al-Tabari, which would seem to indicate that Shaykh Ali Sabuni, he concurs with that view. Switch over to Ibn Ajib. Ibn Ajib, now commenting upon this ayah, لِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ مِنْ ثَمَرِ اللَّهِ, meaning from the fruits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So on that, then the interpretation of that verse would be so that they may eat from His fruits, from the fruits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created for them. لِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ مِنْ ثَمَرِ اللَّهِ. Or from the fruits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates from the date palms and grapevines, according to the recital of the 2 brothers. In the English, and this is the limitation, however much you want to try and convey meaning to in interpretation, the limitations. But the first one is speaking about the word thamar, which is the qira'at al-jumhur, the reading in the majority is the word thamar. However, we mentioned the recital of the 2 brothers. In qira'at, when you speak about the 7 or the 10 qira'at, you have qara'ahu al-akhawan, the 2 brothers. Qara'ahu al-akhawan. Who are the 2 brothers in qira'ah? And so that's Hamza wal-Kisai. Hamza ibn Habib al-Zayyat and al-Kisai. They're number 6 and 7 of the 7 imams of the Quran. They're the 2 from Kufa. Hamza ibn Habib al-Zayyat. And Hamza ibn Habib al-Zayyat is the one that Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, because he's in Kufa at the same time as Hamza. Abu Hanifa says, "Sabaqani fi shay'in la unazi'uhu fihima, al-Quran wal-Fara'id." Abu Hanifa said about Hamza, the first of the 2 brothers, and they're not they're brothers in terms of Quran. He says, Hamza has preceded me, or he surpassed me in 2 things that I cannot compete with him in. سبقني في شيئين لا أنازعه فيهما. He said Al-Quran wal-Fara'id. He said in Quran and in inheritance. Al-Quran and inheritance. In inheritance, Hamza ibn Habib al-Zayyat was known to be a master of inheritance, such that there's a mas'ala, there's an inheritance case that's known as Al-Hamziyya. It's known as Al-Hamziyya. Al-Mas'ala Al-Hamziyya fil Fara'id. So Hamza ibn Habib al-Zayyat is the first of the two brothers, and Al-Kisa'i, Imam number 7, out of the 7 Imams of Quran. He's also, for those familiar with language, you study that you learn that there are two madhabs, two primary madhabs in Arabic language, in the rules of Arabic language. You have Al-Basra, which was founded by Sibawayh, and Kufa. And for those who studied the Metin of Ibn Ajurrum, that's essentially a Kufi text. That's a text of Kufa. It's not a Basri text. But who's the founder? It's Al-Kisa'i. It's Al-Kisa'i, Imam number 7 of Quran. So the Imam of Quran, Al-Kisa'i, was also one of the two greatest Imams in Arabic language, Al-Kisa'i. So these two together, if they have a reading that the only two of them read, transmitted from the Prophet, it will be transmitted as the two brothers. And they read this ayah, لِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثُمُرِهِ, min thumur. They did not read it. And that's a reading that came from the Prophet. The Prophet read that verse, لِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثَمَرِهِ وَلِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثُمُرِهِ. In ثَمَرِهِ, ثَمَر is ma'ruf, ثَمَر is fruits. An ism jins of fruits. What's thumur? It is suggested that thumur is the plural of thamara. It's a plural of thamara, thumur, or it's what's termed as jam'u of thimar. Thamar, thimar, thumur. So it's a plural. It's either a normal plural with thamara, thumur, or it's jam'u. It's a plural of a plural. Thamar, thimar, thumur. So it's fruits. لِيَأْكُلُوا مِنْ ثُمُرِهِ, or from fruits, and that's the second word, or the second view, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates according to the recital of the two brothers. Al-Akhawan, Hamza wal-Kisa'i. وَمَا عَمِلَتْهُ أَيْدِيهِمْ, and what their hands have worked. Ibn Ajib comments upon that, right? All the effort that they've put in to prepare, such as planting, watering, pollinating, and other tasks which are needed in the world of wisdom. What's he call it? في عالم الحكمة. Until the fruits ripen. The fruits themselves are the act of Allah, within which there are the traces of human acts as wisdoms and to conceal the secrets of Lordship. He's gone into a theological, spiritual point here. The world of wisdom, the secrets of Lordship, the traces of human acts. The belief of Ahl Sunnah, wal Jama'ah qatibatan, as a whole, all that human beings do has no effect whatsoever upon creating the act. All that human beings do has no effect whatsoever in creating the act. Wallahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'amalun. Ala lisan al-Khalil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quotes from on the tongue of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah created you and all that you do. Allah subhanahu all that you do, all the works that you do are created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Mu'tazila held that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, human beings do actions and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates a potent, or He creates a power, when He deposits with the human being a power by which He's able to create. So the human being does create according to the Mu'tazila, but Ahl Sunnah says there's only one creator, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't even create within you the ability to create. It's just a semblance of creation. The appearance of creation. The reality is only one creator. So when you pour water over, it's not your act of pouring water that caused it to grow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused that water to flow from your hand. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused that. You planted the seed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who did it. وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ. You did not throw when you threw. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. Allah threw. So when you planted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala planted it through you, but you have no power whatsoever. But in the world of wisdom, because the world of wisdom, alam al-hikmah, the world that we reside within, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the appearance of creation. You incline towards an act, you choose to do, then Allah subhanahu lets you do it, or makes you believe that you're doing it. But the true believer understands you don't do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has required you to do what in reality He's creating through you. That's the world of wisdom. Why is that the world of wisdom? Because this is the world that judgment is based upon. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows you to choose to do certain acts, and then He makes you believe that you're doing the act. But the true believer understands as you're doing the act, Allah's doing it, not you. Allah's doing the act, not you. You're just a vessel by which it appears that the act is taking place. Why does Allah subhanahu do it that way? You have the inclination towards an act. You choose to do a good deed. Then Allah subhanahu wants to make you believe that you're actually doing the act so that you'll be judged accordingly. The reality is that He's created the act. That's all the world of wisdom. The fruits themselves are the act of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu created the water. He created you. He created your action of pouring water over it. And then He created to grow. What did you have in all of that? The traces of human acts. That's what He calls the traces of human act, which is just the inclination to do it and just to become the vessel by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates through. Traces of human acts as wisdoms and to conceal the secrets of Lordship. What's the secret of Lordship? Asrar al-Rububiyyah. For the human being to understand that everything, absolutely everything is His subhanahu wa ta'ala. Absolutely everything. Like, you don't have any action whatsoever. You have an inclination towards an action, and your judgment is based upon that, but you don't have any reality. And that's a secret of Lordship, of Asrar al-Rububiyyah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places through. Originally the statement, Ibn Ajib then goes on to a further point now, an example of iltifat, how Allah subhanahu switches. He switches the, I'm going to put it in the correct order. Yeah. The change in the language here now. And we've come across one or two examples of this already. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, He said, وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا جَنَّاتٍ مِّن نَخِيلٍ وَأَعْنَابٍ وَفَجَّرْنَا. In the verse before, when Allah started speaking about He says, we did this, we did that, we did this. But then He didn't say from our fruits. It's all we. It's all we. So normally you'd say وَجَعَلْنَا وَفَجَّرْنَا. So it should be min thamarina. Now we produce this. We cause it to gush forth so that they may eat from our fruits. It should be our fruits, because then that matches up with the we. Well, He subhanahu wa ta'ala has done it again, iltifat. He switched the mode of address from the first person, the we, to the third person. I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to stop here now, inshallah ta'ala. We'll go over this perhaps as to discuss why did Allah subhanahu switch it at this point? Why didn't He say min thamarina? So we'll stop here and we'll continue this inshallah ta'ala tomorrow, the same time, 7:15, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. There's no questions online. We'll finish with this for the time. Allahumma arhamna bil Quran waj'alhu lana imaman wa nuran wa hudan wa rahma. Allahumma dhakkirna minhu ma nusina wa 'allimna minhu ma jahilna warzuqna tilawatahu ana al-layli wa atraf an-nahar waj'alhu lana hujjatan ya rabbal alamin. جزا الله عنا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ما هو أهله. جزا الله عنا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ما هو أهله. جزا الله عنا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ما هو أهله. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين. لحضرة النبي الفاتحة.